Gatorback Cycle Park in Gainesville, Florida. A record-breaking crowd on hand to experience the thrills of outdoor motocross. Hello, everyone. Art Ekman along with David Bailey. The unique thing about starting the motocross season is it begins right in the middle of the supercross season.
Well, it's refreshing for the riders, everyone other than McGrath. He's 6 for 6 so far indoors, but a chance for guys like Emig and Bradshaw and LaRocco to get something started. Put a stop to the McGrath streak.
One of the most exciting finishes of a season we've seen in a long time. The 125s last year. The champion is back.
Right. Well, Steve Lamson DNF'd the moto at the opening round last year. He missed round 2 because of an injury, and that went down to the wire. This year, he's got way too much competition to afford a DNF.
As we take a look at the Suzuki track map, David, will see that there are a lot of changes in this track.
That's for sure, Art. About the only thing that stays the same is the starting line in the first corner. But as soon as you drop into the pit, everything is different. A right-hander this year approaching that big elevator jump. Not a very good run at it either. And also that whoop section down there at the bottom of your screen, bringing the racing closer to the fans. For more on the track conditions, let's go down to Davey Coombs.
Gatorback Cycle Park here at Gainesville has always been known as one of the hardest tracks on the circuit, and a week full of rain made it a really bad track for the amateurs on Friday and on Saturday. But as you can see from the soil here, the organizers came out, they worked the track all night on Saturday night, and what we have is a really loamy track, so traction's at a premium. It's not as rough as it normally is, and we're getting some really good racing out here.
Thanks, Davey, and a big congratulations to Mark Barnett as we get ready for the 125 first moto. It was Barnett that got this track in such terrific shape. He won this 125 overall back in 1983. Now he's working the track for these youngsters as we get ready, and they're off. Defending champion #1, Steve Lamson. Very fine out of the gate. Lamson gets the whole shot. And right with him, #9, Mike Brown of Honda of Troy, and his teammate Jeff Willow, Mikkel Pichon, Damon Huffman, and John Dowd. Very good starts, but it's #1, the defending champion out front.
You know, I noticed, Art, as they came off the starting line that Damon Huffman was way in the back of the pack. He went to the first corner, looked like last, but he was pretty clever around the first corner. He's running about 5th or 6th right now.
Lamson winning his first ever professional title, getting that #1 plate. Makes it a fraction lighter to carry around this year anyway, but the pressures of defending a little heavier.
Well, that #1 plate really just serves as a target, Art. Everyone's gunning for you, and right now Mike Brown's putting the heat on.
Oh, Mike Brown certainly is, and he's coming down to the outside. Will he cut inside? No, he stays to the outside. Steve Lamson trying to hold him off, and does so.
Oh, Mike Brown motored around that outside. Look at him side by side. He's cutting back to the inside. I like the fact that he's not following. He does what Jeremy McGrath does, everyone else in the 250 class.
Brown into the title chase until the very end of last season, and he makes the inside move on Steve Lamson. What a nice move. He had the right line, took advantage of Lamson going a little wide.
Well, it looked like Lamson charged hard into the corner. He felt the pressure. He hit a braking bump, and he wasn't able to keep the wheels on the ground and get his brakes to actually work and get him stopped in the corner. He drifted too wide, and Brown was there.
So Mike Brown, who won his very first national overall in Washougal, Washington last year, makes this pass.
Well, you can see Lamson's already in the outside berm. Brown cuts across from the inside over into Lamson's line just to make sure he makes that pass stick.
And who can forget the highlight, too, after he won, the infamous head shaving of his mechanic, Jeff Nutter, losing the bet to his rider, and with a smile on his face coming out of it bald.
Well, I don't think he'd mind staying bald as long as his rider stayed out front. Right now, I'm impressed with Brown. He's riding this aggressive, taking it to Lamson, the defending champion, and it looked like he had a little breathing room there for a minute, but Lamson's coming right back.
Lamson coming back to pressure Mike Brown. Once again, it's Brown in the corner. And Brown really is used to 250s this year in the Supercross action, coming back to the 125s here in motocross.
That's a good point, Art. I think a lot of the guys that ride the 250 class for half the season anyway, they jump back on the 125. They've got a lot of strength and a lot of confidence running with the big boys. And there you see Pichon. He's had some pretty strong rides in the 250 class, but just coming off of a bad crash in Atlanta at the Supercross, he's not really sure how he's going to do today, but so far he's looking pretty good.
A nasty scar in the back of his neck, and a couple lacerations under his chin came when he had a get-off over a triple because of a downed rider underneath him. It is Mike Brown, Steve Lamson, and Mikkel Pichon at Gatorback Cycle Park in Gainesville, Florida. Art Ekman, David Bailey, and Davey Coombs down in the pits as we check out our leader here in Moto #1. It is Mike Brown of Honda of Troy, #9, and going right underneath that terrific crowd on hand. They had a 4-mile backup traffic jam getting into this place, parking cars all over the place.
Well, I can tell you, I used to promote a national in Virginia, and the longer that traffic jam gets, the more irritated everyone is, the better.
Record crowds in Supercross this year, and this is the opener for Motocross, of course. Good to see a record crowd here at Gainesville. Jeff Nutter, Mike Brown's mechanic, giving him some encouragement now. He'll go to the other side of the pits to give him the board.
Right, they come up out of that pit, and that's the first time they get a close look at their rider, and then they run across where they come back down this way. This is the signaling area, and Mike Brown hanging on to that lead, but Lamson is starting to put the pressure on because he's feeling it from Pichon.
And Pichon, I was going to say, is right there. It's a 1-2-3 battle for the lead. One mistake, and you can be in third place real quick.
Yeah, Brown actually did make a little bit of a mistake. He's still able to get over that big plateau, but he got kind of pinched up against the wall there coming up that hill and lost his balance a little bit.
Brown was right in the title chase, as we mentioned before, until late in the season. He ended up 4th in the point standings in 1-2-5 action last year. He was first in the points list when they went to Troy, and then went over the bars at Binghamton to really take him out of the points race. He's feeling the heat right now from number 1, the defending champion, Steve Lamson.
Well, I think this 125 action all year long is going to be really tight. These guys are close, and like you said, if one of them makes a mistake, they can drop to third. But I think Mike Brown is, you know, he led the points last year. He won a national. He's in the 250 class now in the Supercross. I think he's got the confidence to run with these guys. And there you get a good look at the ruts. And Mike Brown's choosing to use that inside line to protect that corner. But he's got the fastest line for now, but not by much.
Lammy from Pollock Pines, California. On the inside, number 1, putting the challenge now to Mike Brown into the whoop section. After that big swerve, it is Lamson back in first place. Look out for Pichon in third.
Well, Mike Brown had to move over to the inside to that whoop section. He'd been coming in wide, but he's got to protect it. Now you see Pichon again coming up the inside. He forces Brown into a little mistake, and it paid off.
Pichon now moves into second place. He's carrying the number 12 placard on his Kawasaki right now. After a 101 number, his first full season in Supercross Motocross last year. It is Lamson, Mikel Pichon, and Mike Brown in that order. They've pulled away from the rest of the field.
Now this is another section that's been drastically changed this year. It used to be a sharp right-hander before they went back up the hill, but now they go all the way up this hill and they get a good run up the uphill jump to the finish line. And Pichon is really closed on Lamson, putting a lot of pressure on. It looks like these two may pull away from Brown.
Lamson even looking back to see where Mikel was. Let's go down to the mechanics area now, and Davey Coombs.
I'm down here with Chad Watts. This is Mikel Pichon's mechanic. Chad, what do you tell Mikel?
Right now, I'm just saying breathe, relax, and don't follow the same lines as the leader right now, or you won't be able to make any passes out there.
Okay, do you think he's nervous right now?
He may not be, but I am.
It must be tough for a mechanic, though, to watch the rider out there and not really have complete control.
Well, when they're in a battle like this, I mean, you start wondering if you've done your job correctly. And the rider's thinking about something completely different, but he just wanted to make sure he left everything, didn't leave anything loose.
Look at those ruts.
Well, the ruts in these off-camber sections get even deeper because you really need something to slide into so you don't wash out down the hill. And Pichon has got a little different line everywhere. Just like Chad said, he's not following, and that's how you put the pressure on. You show him a fender.
Pichon to the inside. And Pichon looks back once again at Steve Lamson. Lamson, though, holding tight after losing the lead.
Well, Lamson, just like before when Brown was able to get around him, he just left the door open a little bit right there, and Pichon was riding the right line to take the lead away from him. And looking over again, Pichon looks around a lot. You know, I noticed that in Supercross already. As if to say, maybe, do I really have to go this fast? Here's another look at the pass. Before that elevator jump, Pichon just dialed in that berm, got it hooking up. So he looks over just to make sure, I think at that point, just to make sure he didn't tangle with him. He wanted to make sure he could move over to the inside in a more of a polite gesture than anything else.
Pichon, of course, off to a good start in the 125 Eastern Division Supercross race, despite the fact that he had that crash in Atlanta. And look at here, number 26, Scott Sheik, is all the way into 4th place. He's giving Mike Brown some troubles right now. Sheik, I think he started about 11th position.
Well, he's obviously come from pretty far back. I don't remember seeing him in the first lap or two, but definitely made some good moves. And now he's challenging the leaders. Brown was the early leader and has faded a little bit, not much. And Sheik has obviously got a fast pace going. This is a real privateer. You know, as opposed to Brown, who's riding that Honda of Troy motorcycle. I think Brown may have a little advantage in horsepower and suspension, but Sheik doesn't really care right now. He's going as fast as he can, and it's working for him.
Sheik to the inside on Brown. You saw the green bike go right by. That's Damon Huffman. He's in third. Now Sheik, Scott Sheik, The Camel Skull Top Privateer winner of last year is in 4th position. Mike Brown in 5th. There, number 10, Hoffman in 3rd position, and Sheik is not that far behind as we go into the whoop section. Let's go down to the mechanics area. Davey Coombs.
I'm down here with Kenny Watson. This is Scott Sheik's mechanic. How stoked are you to have Scott up there with the factory guys?
Pretty happy. We had a bad weekend last weekend. We had some bike problems, but we did a lot of testing this week, and things seem to be working out pretty good. We still got a lot of time left, so we'll see what happens.
Do you think that he's intimidated at all by these factory guys?
Heck no. The guy works his butt off, and he gives it everything he has, and he knows that he's like one of the best guys out there, and he can do it. We both think he can do it, and he's showing it.
Last year here at Gatorback Cycle Park, number 26 on the Suzuki, Scott Sheik placed 13th in both motos. He started to come around, though, about mid-season, David. Binghamton, he took a 4th place, his best overall finish with a 4th and 6th. He was leading at Mount Morris before a crash.
Well, from 13th to 4th place in this moto. He hasn't finished the moto yet in 4th place, but it certainly looks like he's on to a good finish, and that's a big improvement over last year.
Mikel Pichon pulling away out front in our first 125 moto, and we'll be back in a moment. Cycle Park in Gainesville, Florida, the first moto of 125 action. Art Ekman, David Bailey, and Davey Coombs. We're looking right now at the battle for 7th place. A couple of old veterans, Larry Brooks and John Dowd.
Right, both these guys moving back into the 125 class from the 250 is a little bit of a surprise, but and everyone keeps saying that Dowd is the oldest guy. He might be, but not by much. That Brooks is getting up there. He's got a couple of kids. And I remember when I was an amateur, he was already an established mini bike star. So he's been around a long time.
This is John Dowd's actual first 125 outdoor national moto. He never ran 125s in the outdoors. He did participate in the 125 Eastern Supercross series for one season, but this is the first time outdoors. He started late in his career and went right to the 250s.
I think it's kind of ironic that both these guys are running together, too, because I know Brooks didn't have a whole lot of time on the 125. Neither one of these guys really did. Dowd's ridden the Supercross a little bit so far this season, but he's had some injuries and stuff so far. And now Brown is continuing to fade a little bit, I think. Perhaps running up front early made him nervous, and now he's got pressure from Dobb.
Number 19, James Dobb. He's riding Craig Decker's bike. Decker, of course, out with an injury, so it is a race-to-race situation with Team Suzuki for James Dobb. But Dobb is doing a nice job sneaking that fender just inside Brown. Brown powering out of the corner, though, to keep the lead on his competition.
I'd be willing to bet that Dobb went in there and ran his front wheel over Mike Brown's foot. It was just hidden by the bank there, but definitely got Brown's attention if he wasn't already concerned about him. These guys are pretty much just locked in a battle between themselves. They're pretty far off the pace from the leaders and pretty far ahead of the battle we just looked at between Brooks and Dowd.
Right now, it's just a battle for points here in the first moto. Mikel Pichon, in case you just joined us, is way out in front. Let's go down to Davey Coombs.
It looked like early in the race that Mike was really on the gas, but right now he seems to have gone into a slower pace. Do you think he's saving himself for the end?
Yeah, we told him we got to be there at the end. There's 26 motos this year now, and told him it's got to go out. We got to have a podium finish this weekend. Don't go out and kill yourself on the first moto. We got lots of time, 30 minutes to go out there, sit back, cruise, follow their lines, be there at the end of the race.
Jeff Nutter, Mike Brown's mechanic. Brown, number 9, being hounded now by James Dobb. Dobb, of course, out of England, and he's really out to prove that he deserves this factory ride. He'd like to hold on to it.
Well, he's had his chance indoors to do that, and he hasn't been able to really capitalize. Here's a new chance in the outdoors to get something started, and they're a little ways off the pace from the leaders, but he's definitely putting the pressure on. He's come from behind, and I was thinking about that strategy from Brown's mechanic, and I don't know, in case anybody's wondering why you would just want to settle for a 4th or a 5th. I think, you could look at that and think, well, it might be kind of a wimpy strategy, but perhaps that might work better for him. It's a long season, be consistent, finish both motos. You can see him tell him to breathe and relax, which is what he's had a tough time doing in the Supercross. He gets out front, gets pretty good starts, and he gets hounded by all these guys that he's not used to racing with, gets nervous, his arms pump up, and he finishes way further back than he would have if he just relaxed. So that might pay off in the end.
Well, he's had some wonderful sorties in this particular race. We might take this opportunity to mention who is not here. Last year's winner, Robbie Raynard, He won the overall with a third and a first in the 2 motos. He's injured. Mike Craig also injured in Supercross action. A fractured leg, is not here. A guy who is here but not riding is Kevin Windham.
Well, I really miss seeing him out there because he's so fast in the indoors and has been pretty quick on the 250s so far this season. The chances he's had to ride him, and I think he'd be running up front right now, Art.
Of course, right now, David, he's concentrating on trying to win the 125 West Division title and will not be back into action until the Supercross in Houston.
Well, I think it's possible that we could see the same kind of comeback in terms of the title from Windham that we saw from Lamson last year. Having missed 3 motos, he still proved that he could come back and win the title, and I think Windham's got the speed to do that. He's definitely got, you know, Hannah and the right team on his side, and perhaps the experience after what he learned from last year.
Mike Brown, number 9, and number 19, James Dobb. Fighting right now for 5th and 6th position. Mikel Pichon way out in front. You saw Scott Sheik just go by in 4th place. These guys aren't too far from Scott.
Well, I think what's happened is Sheik, I don't think he's slowed down. He's running the same pace, but now perhaps Brown is starting to find his rhythm, and Dobb is pushing him. These guys have picked up the pace, and maybe they're going to catch Sheik.
Oh, this is where endurance comes into play after battles like this about mid-race. You got to be feeling it toward the end. Brown looking back just to check out. Hey, where's Dobb? I thought he was closer than that as they rip by that record-breaking crowd.
Well, sometimes you just kind of curious where he is. You want to know which line you can take, and if you think he's right there, it doesn't hurt to glance over and see where he is. And that's the second time in a row now I've noticed that Dobb's not jumping that entire plateau right there, losing a little bit of time, and I don't know why that is. You know, he jumps most of the stuff in the Supercross races. Maybe that's kind of got a rutted face like we've seen in some of the other sections of the racetrack. He's just uncomfortable there.
For those of you who've been at Gainesville before, it's a pretty flat area, but you see there's a lot of elevation changes here on the Gatorback Cycle Park. That's because this is an old rock quarry, and so they go down deep into that pit, and it makes for some interesting jumps and elevation changes.
And it's pretty neat the way the spectator area is set all the way around the edge where they can get a good look down in there, and the way they've changed the track this year, it makes it even better. So the fans are getting their money's worth this year.
The veteran John Dowd, number 7. Earlier in the race, he ran into a downed rider and went down, and that slowed him up a bit. He's trying to battle his way back into it. His bike's not, well, I was going to say it didn't sound very good when it went by the booth.
Well, it's obvious now. Something's obvious. That's mechanical right there. You can see him trying to work the throttle delicately to just try to keep it from loading up. I don't know. It looks like he could be done for the afternoon.
We'll check in with Davey down in the pits.
We're down here with Brian Berry. This is John Dowd's mechanic. Brian, can you tell what's wrong with John?
I don't really know what's wrong right now. The bike keeps stalling, and then it takes off again. So really, he didn't give me any indication what's going on right now. I don't know if he's doing it or the bike's screwed up, or I don't know yet.
That points to the limited communication a mechanic has with his rider. What do you think, David?
Well, the way he was working the throttle, it could be the carburetor, get a little piece of dirt in there or something, or perhaps the ignition. But either way, at least he's able to keep going, but he's definitely going to finish pretty far back.
Pichon, Lamson, and Huffman, the top 3 in our 125. Tail end of moto number 1 for the 125s. Let's take a look at the 3rd place bike right now, number 10. Damon Huffman. He's had a very steady ride the entire race.
Well, like I said, he didn't get off the starting gate very good, but he got through the corner around the inside and moved up quite a ways. You can see him looking over on the racetrack there to see who's next in line for him to pass. Looked like a pretty long ways.
Oh, look at Steve Lamson. Lamson went down, and now we've got a real battle for 2nd place on our hands. Steve Lamson, Damon Huffman, and there's Scott Sheik, all battling for 2nd.
Wow, this has really changed the complexion of this, because I was about to say that it was a long ways to the next rider, which was 2nd place Lamson. And as Huffman looked over, he may have looked over and seen that he was in the corner and crashed, and now he's got a great opportunity to finish 2nd, perhaps pick up an overall.
An exciting new development here. The battle for 2nd place as Mikel Pichon has just gone away from this pack of 3 for 2nd place. A 14-second lead for the leader. But right now, Damon Huffman is giving Steve Lamson everything he can. Let's check back in with Davey.
We're with Mike Gosser trying to find out what happened to Steve Lamson. How did Steve lose all that time?
He went down that turn right there, and it looks like maybe he just lost the front end, trying to cut it real tight. It wasn't a bad crash or anything, it just kind of slid out.
Wow, as Lamson comes down the hill, he left the door wide open in that corner. He had to muscle his way back around Huffman, just to make the face of that jump right there. So Huffman's really putting the pressure on, and he's kind of in a tough spot, too, because if he takes any odd lines to try to get around Lamson, Sheik's right there to slide underneath him.
Off the finish line jump, it's Lamson in second place, Huffman in third, and Sheik a very tight fourth position, all behind Mikel Pichon. Sheik coming up on the back fender of Huffman now. Scott Sheik is running a tough race. Cuts to the inside, boxes him out, and Scott Sheik is now in third place. He's on a podium spot if he can hold Huffman off.
It doesn't look like he's ready to stop there either, Art. He's gunning for the national champion. Now here's another look at his pass. He came around that corner on the gas, threads the needle. Not any room to get between Huffman and that pile of sand right there. Somehow he does it, and I think Huffman's shocked.
Lamson still in second place. Now we might see the same type of battle with Sheik coming up on Lammy.
Well, he's definitely gaining ground on Lamson, and Pichon is gone. You can see it's only one more lap to go, but I think it's time enough for Sheik to put a move on Lamson. He's on a roll right now.
And Chad Watts, you can see how happy he is. A 14-second lead on that board.
He's not nervous anymore. He's excited. He's just saying, stay smooth. You can see right there, Pichon's just out for a trail ride now. He can cruise this last lap and just enjoy the victory.
One of his biggest concerns last year was conditioning.
Well, I think he's answered that right now. This isn't one of the hotter races that we're going to see during the season. When we get into June and July and Troy, Ohio, Michigan, and all those races, that's where we're really going to find out how fit he is. But I think fitness can be overcome a little bit by confidence. And right now, he's got to be pretty confident with the way he's ridden so far indoors and now in his first moto outdoors.
Mikel Pichon on the Split-Fire Pro Circuit Kawasaki. He was third overall here last year with a fifth place in the first moto and came back strong for a second place, acknowledging the great fans here at Gatorback Cycle Park. Mikel Pichon, all he has left now is to go down into the pit and come back over that finish line jump.
Well, that may be easier said than done, Art. One time I crashed at the bottom of that hill, 50 feet from the finish line in DNF. That was a pretty freak thing, but it can happen. However, I think Pichon has got enough composure to make it up this hill.
Mikel Pichon, only a few feet away, sees the checkers and celebrates his second moto win. As far as the National Outdoors are concerned, Pichon, Lamson second, Scott Sheik a great third place finish with Huffman in fourth. Checking back with Davey.
Mikel, Gainesville is always full of surprises, but I don't think a lot of people expected to see you up front today.
Yeah, I'm very happy because from the crash I got last weekend, I was not very sure about this race this weekend. And I didn't ride a lot this week, but I took the time to test with the bike, and I'm very happy. We got a good bike. I got a work suspension from Kayaba, and it works really good, and I feel great. I'm very happy for the first win.
And here you can see from the Suzuki point standings that 3-point jump from first to second, then a 2-point jump down to fifth, and then 1 point all the way to 20th.
Our third place finisher, Scott Sheik.
You didn't look the least bit intimidated by those factory guys, especially over here in this corner.
Not at all. Like I said, I've been training really hard, and I've been preparing myself for this all winter. And I just took my time. Took my time. It worked out for me.
One of Honda's advisors, Jeff Stanton, packing it in for Steve Lamson, who just took a second place. Hey, there's Dan Bentley, Stan's former mechanic, off to the left, packing it in for Honda of Troy. We'll be back with the second moto for the 125s and the 250 Superstars coming up. Before we get to the 250 Superstars, but really, this guy's a superstar in his own right. Steve Lamson, who last year in one of the most exciting finishes in 125 history on the last moto, won the championship. He also did well in that first moto. Damon Huffman right there looking for a better second moto.
It looks like the kind of grimace that you would have when a privateer passed you with a lap to go. I bet you he's looking to improve on his finish, perhaps get an overall.
Okay, the gate is down. Let's see who gets the hole shot. Lamson, another good start. Mike Brown is up there. Lamson again the hole shot with Ezra Lusk and Brown, Deegan, Ferry, and Sheik the order. Denny Stevenson on the left. He's down. Pedro Gonzalez, number 147, is down in turn number 1. Steve Lamson, meanwhile, cutting it pretty good like he did in the first moto, is out in front with Ezra Lusk, number 34, in second place.
Once again, Mike Brown's off to a fantastic start, running in third spot right now, but Lusk, I don't remember seeing him at all in the first moto. He's got a great chance right here. He's putting some pressure on Lamson. He's fast in the early part of the race, but has a tough time keeping it on two wheels.
Lusk in the last year of his Team Suzuki contract, and he's trying to show some stuff before that ends up because of injuries last year. In fact, he's riding this race with a back injury coming out of Supercross.
Well, I think he's got to be feeling like if he can't get something going this year and at least finish off fairly strong, show some potential, this could be the last chance he has at a factory ride. He could be looking at maybe not even getting a spot on a Honda of Troy team, because those teams are full of talent.
Ezra Lusk, though, shows Lamson a wheel as they come down. Look at all those ruts.
Well, that's going to get worse as the day continues because of all that rain. The ground is pretty soft, and it makes it tough to choose your lines in the opening laps of the next moto, because the track has changed a little bit, and that's what's good about motocross. It changes from lap to lap.
Ezra Lusk trying to recover from that very bad first moto. He was 6th here last year with a 7th and a 9th place finish. Through the whoops, Lamson is first, then Lusk, Mike Brown, Deegan, Ferry, Sheik number 26, and then Dowd, and look at Mikel Pichon. He was way back there, a 9th place start, trying to catch up.
Well, that's the bad news, but the good news is coming through that section, he can actually look up the racetrack because they're all so close together and see the leader. And if Pichon can see the leader, he's fast enough to catch him.
Here's the battle up front with Lamson number 1 as they go down into the pit, and Ezra Lusk trying to make his mark, number 34 on the Team Suzuki.
Well, that corner at the top of that hill is really starting to get chewed up. You see Lusk right there at the bottom, almost lost the front end. So that's actually kind of that limestone. They get some rocks in there. It's very slick. I mentioned in the first moto, that's where I went down a few years back, and it cost me a whole moto, so it's real tricky there.
Coming over the finish line jump after lap number 1. Lamson still your leader with Lusk and Brown the top 3.
Lusk really putting the pressure on Lamson. He's showing him a wheel everywhere, and you know, when you ride that aggressive and you're searching for lines and gobbling up all that roost coming off the guy in front of you, it takes a lot of energy. So I'd be interested to see if Lusk can hang on with this pace for the rest of the race.
This track surface has changed over the years. It used to be a lot sandier.
Oh, I don't know where the sand went. I think it's all down in that pit. That lake's probably a little deeper, shallower than it used to be, because it's all hard-packed limestone type surface out there, and it still gets rough, but now it's a lot choppier type of a rough rather than those rolling whoop-de-doos that you see at tracks like Southwick.
And you can get to throwing rocks and clods pretty good there.
Well, I can tell you, when you're behind those bikes, even the 125s, they're spitting off those little sharp pieces of dirt and rocks right in your face, your chest, your arms. It's coming at you at 60 or 70 miles an hour. It doesn't feel good. So that's a lot of times why you'll see guys use a different line, even if it's not as fast, just to stay out of that roost and also to keep their vision clear.
Coming down that hill looks like a difficult chore as they go into several ruts there. You have to pick the right one.
Well, it looks like Lamson's got a completely different idea of how to get through there than Lusk. A lot of the guys behind Lusk followed his same line, but it looks to me like Lamson's starting to get a little bit of breathing room, and once he does, he's able to ride without having to be defensive in all the corners. He'll probably start to pull away, and that's bad news right there for Pichon.
Tim Ferry's moved up to 4th position, as we saw out of the whoops. And here's Mikel Pichon. Number 12 was the winner of moto number 1, trying to weed his way up now through the pack. And he's all the way back in 18th place. We do have word now that he went down right after that first lap. And after a 9th place start, he probably picked up around 22nd place.
Yeah, well, you can see all those riders in front of him. He has nowhere to go. And the roost we just talked about, he's going to gobble up quite a bit of it. And if he can get up anywhere near these leaders towards the end, he won't have any vision left.
Ed Longacre, the mechanic for Ezra Lusk, giving his instruction now as Brown goes by, still in 3rd. Look at how rough this course is getting now as Ezra Lusk tries to catch up with Steve Lamson. Lamson's starting to pull a little bit of a lead.
Well, it's not much, and on a 125, I can tell you that you only pull away inches. In the 250, you pull away more in yards, I think.
Okay, we've got Lamson, Lusk, Brown, Ferry in 4th, and Sheik back in 5th. We'll be back with more 125 action in a moment. It's Steve Lamson, the defending champion, who took 2nd place in moto number 1, out in front of Ezra Lusk. Our moto number 1 winner having his problems in the back of the pack, Mikel Pichon. Mike Brown, though, is pulling up on Ezra Lusk, and we see Tim Ferry, number 20, a good Florida rider, in 4th.
This is about where I would expect Ferry to run. The first moto way off the pace in 12.
Brown, after a 5th place first moto, doing a lot better in 3rd place. Let's go to Jeff Nutter.
Jeff, Mike's up there again in the 2nd moto. What's he going to do different this time?
Well, the first moto, about halfway through, when he's up front with Lamb, he started dicing, started thinking a little bit, and then his arm started pumping. The last half of the moto, he relaxed. He started gaining some time back on him. Like I said before, all we want to do is finish. We want to be on the podium this week because we got 12 more Supercrosses before the next outdoor.
Ezra Lusk right in front of Mike Brown. Ezra was a 125 East Supercross champion, but has not made his mark outdoors, as he has the lead on Mike Brown on a smooth portion of the track there, right in front of the crowd, the grandstand. This area comes into, though, is a little bit more tricky, and he almost does a dirt bike phase there.
Oh, he just didn't let off the gas. He started to get sideways on that hard slick stuff, and he just left the throttle on, made problems worse, almost went off the racetrack. And Brown really didn't have to make a pass. He just rode down the straightaway, minding his own business, and inherited 2nd place.
Minding his own business, keeping his own line. Mike Brown now moving into 2nd place. Jeff Nutter's got to be thinking a little different strategy right now as he comes across the finish line, jump headed for turn number 1. You see Lampson in 1st place, and Brown is not that far behind on that angle of the shot.
And the way he rode past the camera right there, he made a mistake, went over the berm right there. I was just about to say that he looks a lot more aggressive right here than he did in the first moto. Perhaps he needed the first moto of the year is tough for everyone. You're nervous and your arms pump up, and perhaps that was a good strategy just to relax. But now he looks like he's getting down to business, and he's going to have to, because he's got these guys breathing down his neck.
Ezra Lusk, and that's Tim Ferry in 3rd and 4th.
Ferry now really starting to pick up the pace, putting the pressure on Lusk. He wants to, it looks like he may want to hitch a ride with Brown and go to the front. They can just look up the racetrack, 25, 30 yards and see Lampson, and that's got to give him inspiration and make him want to try extra hard.
Ferry 12th in the first moto, would like to have a better showing now as we take a look at the Suzuki stopwatch to try to get the interval. 3.4-second lead, Lammy over Mike Brown. Right behind Brown, we've got a battle going on, and it's Ferry to the inside, getting by Lusk. Lusk almost went down again. Here's Tim Ferry now. Last year, he won the overall at Mount Morris with 2 second-place finishes, but then right after that, after his first career national victory, he got hit and hit hard after he dismounted his bike.
Well, now you got a Suzuki freight train, because here comes Scott Sheik at the tail end of this battle. He was fast in the first moto, and what was impressive was that he was really fast at the end. So he's the only guy I can see out there that really has the ability to make up a lot of time, other than Pichon, who we still don't see in our screen yet. He's got a lot of work cut out for him.
Lampson and Brown, 2 Hondas out in front. The Suzuki's next. And Sheik, don't rule him out after what we saw in that first moto.
Well, I had to pump him up. You see in his interview how excited he was. Just to be up there running with these guys, and that gives you so much confidence. All it takes is one moto like that, sometimes even just a qualifier, to run up with those guys, and then all of a sudden you believe that you can. If you believe you can, you can.
Our defending champion out in front right now as we take a look at these. We are back with moto number 2 of the 125 action after Mikel Pichon winning moto number 1. We've got a battle for 2nd place now between Tim Ferry in 3rd, Mike Brown just in front of him. Brown number 9, Ferry number 20.
These guys are still not too far off the pace from Lampson. You can see Lampson actually just out of your screen when around that left-hander. What a freight train battle for 2nd. A lot of guys, sometimes what happens, they start protecting their line, they ride a little bit more defensive, and that could let Lampson get away. But what a great battle between these guys, and Ferry really on the move.
Ferry cutting to the inside, and he's got the edge. Can he hold on to it? Oh, he just got the traction coming up the elevator.
Well, that's the same place he made the move on Lusk. He's got that right-hander wired, and already pulled away a little bit from Brown, as you can see. And Lampson just came out of the corner. Ferry's just coming in. He's got a completely different line. Here's another look at the pass, just up the inside. Brown left the door wide open going in, and that was the end of story.
Looked like they were trying for the same crease, the same rut.
Yeah, well, you know, I really like watching Ferry ride. He's got a good style. He rides aggressive. He picks good lines. I don't know what it is, why he hasn't been able to put it together, but he sure has the potential.
There's Deegan, John Dowd, number 7, and Damon Huffman, number 10.
Huffman, who had a pretty good ride in the first moto, climbing his way up into 3rd place, and then eventually getting passed by Sheik at the end. It looks like he's got probably a little bit better lines out there, a little more experience to be able to get around these guys, but the leaders are gone, so it's going to be a little bit of a disappointing day for him after the way he's been riding in the Supercrosses.
Good ride right now for Brian Deegan out of Bellevue, Nebraska. Number 25 just in front of Dowd.
And Dowd jumping that big long plateau, as you can see, and looked like Huffman elected not to do it. Maybe we saw that in the first moto. Oh, a big rock just got kicked out in front of Huffman from Dowd coming down that hill. That's where we saw Lusk get out of shape. A lot of rocks starting to get uncovered coming down that hill, and he was lucky to dodge it. He hit that, you're going down for sure.
Deegan, Dowd, and Huffman now. As we look behind the leaders, Deegan holding on to that position.
Well, he hit a big braking bump just before that corner, got a little out of shape. Barely stayed into the berm right there, but it's kind of keeping the pace a little slower. I think Dowd is quicker. You can see right here he's all over him, and I think it's the same for Huffman right now. If he loses any time, he gains it all right back.
In case you just joined us, Dowd having some problems with the carburetor, it appeared, with his bike in the first moto. Now goes a little bit wide, but Huffman can't take advantage of it. Didn't have the acceleration. As we take a look at the Suzuki stopwatch now, and our interval between first and second is about 4.2 seconds.
Well, it's still pretty tight. You know, I don't think Lamps was able to get away, but he's got a comfortable enough lead. And you got to remember, in a 125 class, once he got everybody running pretty much the same pace, to make up time, you really just got to hope for a mistake or ride exceptionally well to make that up. And 3 seconds is a lot.
It looks like Damon Huffman is just searching for a way around that. It's getting a little one line.
Yeah, well, on a 125, if the track is at all one line, it's just about impossible to pass because of the horsepower. You know, at 250, you grab a little extra handful and you pick a good line and hook up, you can really get a drive. But on a 125, you're doing all that you can anyway, and that makes that fastest line even skinnier. So this is going to be really tough for him to get around these guys, but I think he has the ability to do it in the long run.
Coming out of the big sweep, here's where Damon Huffman excels, going through whoops. Tries to pick it up on John Dow, but he can't get close enough.
You can see coming out of that corner there, those skid marks. They're starting to get down. It's the later part of the day. The ground's drying out, and a lot of places it's getting slick. We already saw Lusk, and I keep alluding to Lusk. He's the guy that keeps making the mistakes, though. They're coming up on that corner. This left-hander right here, well, it's just like a half mile, a flat track through there. And 125, you're able to muscle a little bit more, but that's going to be tricky for the 250.
Don't forget, too, coming up next on our show will be the big guys, the 250s.
See if McGrath can keep that streak going. He's perfect on the season. Jeff Emig is the only guy all year long who's been able to beat him. That was just in a heat race in San Diego. And since then, a couple of second places, so this could be a real showdown in that class.
Be a little interesting. Jeremy McGrath admitting that his first national outdoor, he's got a few butterflies going for him.
Oh, I think everyone's nervous, and you know, once that first moto unfolds, you can kind of know where you stand and what the competition's doing, and you know, it's all speculation until then. And right now, these guys are going for it. The nerves are gone, and they're riding aggressive, just trying to put it all together. But it's frustrating for these guys back here. I think Dowd moving into the 125 class from the 250s, thinking it might be a little easier there for him to get a title. Also, Huffman, who sits in second right now in the Supercross standings in his rookie year, thinking he might be able to pick up an easy title, and they're way off the pace. No chance for an overall here today.
Oh, look at the ruts too. You can't get cross-rutted. You got to make up your mind before going into those corners.
That's a real tricky section and real tough to pass. Looks like Huffman, though.
Huffman getting by John Dowd.
Yeah, he made a slick move. He kind of planned that going in. He used that inside rut and just blocked out John Dowd.
And they're all picking up on Ezra Lusk, all three riders.
What a battle. This is the kind of battle you'd much rather be in it for the lead, but it's always fun to be a racer, as well as a spectator, be a racer and be involved in this kind of a battle where you go into the corner once and you're in the lead, and you come out and you lose 3 positions, and they're scrapping back and forth.
Ezra going wide, Huffman going up the middle, and Huffman takes advantage of it. He's got more pressure now on Deegan. Deegan, number 25. Damon Huffman with a very shrewd move, and he gets by. Nice move by Damon as he's gunning now for the 4th place rider, moving into 5th.
Well, Huffman came out of there smelling like a rose, and I had a feeling he'd be able to get by those guys, but not all at once like that. And Lusk, look at him at the tail end of this. He went into that corner ahead of all these guys, lost all his positions, so that leads me to believe that, I mean, it looks like he gave up, really, but we got to remember his back's pretty sore. Maybe it's a lot sore than we think.
So Damon Huffman now in 5th position, Deegan in 6th, and Dowd in 7th.
Huffman came off that plateau pretty close to the edge of the racetrack. Got a little squirrely right there. A lot of the guys are starting to drift as they jump that plateau in the air. They drift way off to the right, and Huffman almost went off the racetrack.
You wouldn't want to go off the racetrack with that water down there.
Well, I wouldn't want to go off there, that's for sure. That's deep.
We've been looking at the battle for a 5th, but let's take a look at the Suzuki field. David Bailey and Davey Combs. As we've seen Steve Lampson pull out to a lead. He's gaining about a second per lap out in front. But look at John Dowd in battling with Damon Huffman.
As Damon Huffman came out of that left sweeper, he reached up to pull a tearaway, it looked like, and the front end started dancing around, and he had to let off, and Dowd rode right by him into that corner. So Dowd on the move right now, trying to make up for that poor first moto. Probably irritated with it wasn't his fault, so he's motivated now.
How many tearaways do you go through on a dusty day like this?
We go through 3 or 4. Any more, and it starts to get a little too foggy, and you use them all.
Huffman cutting to the inside. Oh, hooking the front wheel was John Dowd. Dowd in a battle for 5th place. After Reed carburetor problems in the first moto, he's got to be asking himself, what next?
Well, it looked like he just was a little bit too far to the outside. Damon Huffman, it wasn't really a dirty move. He was just riding his line and didn't leave Dowd a whole lot of room to go. And he was lucky when he took off. It looked like the banners were just about to suck up in his wheel. So lucky to get away from there without hooking up all those.
Well, Dowd has made moves before on this track, that's for sure. As Steve Lampson, we get a good look at his technique now. The Suzuki stopwatch up in the left portion of your screen ripping off to give us an indication as to what his lead is on Tim Ferry, number 20. Passing the lapper right now, 7.3 seconds.
Well, if my math is right, it seems like he's picking up about a second a lap, and that's pretty substantial. I mean, if you think about what that would do for you on a NASCAR track or an Indy, well, you're pulling away. That's pretty dominant, and Ferry was nowhere near the front, 12th place in the first moto, so Lampson really feels no threat in terms of the overall. So this big improvement over last year with that DNF.
Let's check in with Davey in the mechanics area.
This is Tim's home track. Is the win important to him today?
Yeah, it's real important. We, didn't have a very good first moto, so we're going to have to make it up here and hope for a good overall of some sort to carry us to Sacramento.
We're getting down near the end of this second moto of 125 action. Tim Ferry is being hounded now by Mike Brown, number 9. Brown making a move after losing second place to Ferry.
And as they come into that left-hand corner, it looked like Ferry pretty much just stood up and rode the bike into the corner and let Brown ride right around him. And he's either really tired or something has obviously gone wrong with him. He's just not nearly riding the pace he was.
And one rider has certainly picked up his pace is John Dowd, who's now hounding Huffman once again. We're looking at Mike Brown, our second-place rider. Gutsy performance here today.
Well, he's kind of been up and down, and now when it counts towards the end of the race, he's starting to get it together. There's a look at Dowd. He's back around Huffman. Huffman just a little bit ago passed him, and Dowd went down. So he's going fast somewhere on the racetrack. He's made up a lot of time.
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? And look at the shroud on Scott Sheik's bike. Scott Sheik now is hounding Ferry for 3rd.
Yeah, it looks like maybe Sheik might have gone down somewhere or hooked it on a fence post or something, because I don't know why that thing would rip off like that. But now, look, he's just moving right around Ferry. Ferry just looked over and trail rode into that corner. So Ferry's either exhausted. Who knows what's going on with Ferry.
This is amazing, though, for Scott Sheik. After a 3rd-place finish in the first moto, a 3rd-place finish here would put him 2nd in points after the first round.
Oh, that's amazing. And I still am just kind of puzzled by Ferry because he rides real aggressive. Look at him here. He's charging back. But, when he gets past, he just sort of trail rides. And it's almost like Dowd, the way he was in the first moto, having bike problems, going fast for a minute, and then the bike would cut out. But I think this is all up to Ferry.
In talking with Sheik, as we see the white flag final lap coming up, Lampson out in front. But in talking with Sheik before the race, he was saying how much better conditioned he is now after working with a private trainer, really going out of his way to get back into the upper echelon as a privateer. There you see the lead for Steve Lampson, 7 seconds. The Honda crew rather relaxed right now. And, oh, Tim Ferry has gone down. So Ferry's got a forgettable moto to think about after this one.
Well, he had a forgettable moto in the first one, too. And he was running 3rd. Lampson takes the checkered flag with it easily, but what a disappointment for Ferry. He was running up there until the very end.
Taking a look at our Suzuki results, Lamson, Brown, and Sheik on the podium. Ferry slipping to 6th. Let's go to Davey.
Steve, that's quite a way to start your first title defense. 2-1 in the overall here at Gainesville.
Yeah, first moto I was riding a little bit tight and I fell down once, and second moto I felt a lot better. My arms really pump up a little bit first moto, and I rode really smooth, man. The Honda worked excellent that time.
So after our first round of motocross this year, it's Lamson leading the points with a surprising Scott Sheik in second place. Casey Johnson rounding out the top 10. Let's go to Davey.
What were your expectations coming in today? Did you expect to get second?
Well, I've been training really hard. I got this trainer that's been working with me, Joe Licciardi, Peak Performance out in California. He's been working with me all winter, and I've been training really hard, and I've been riding really hard, just working. And you know, we're out testing, and everything's going good. I mean, I'm riding fast, and today this is what I was expecting. I wanted top 5, and it proved to me a lot. I got a lot of confidence right now, and I'm going to be up there all year, I have a feeling.
I'll look at the Suzuki point standings after round 1.
Well, Pichon, who was so dominant in that first moto, is 13 points behind Steve Lamson, who started out last season with a DNF.
The 250s coming up next.